possibly make its way into the pump. So water comes in, makes its way through here. This is the low pressure side. The bottom is the low pressure side. You have a dual feed here just because we're moving 10 gallons a minute through here. Comes in here on the low pressure side, works through the pump, gets pressurized into high pressure. The top side here is the high pressure side. Comes out here, comes through this hose, goes over here into what is called the unloader. The unloader, what this does is when you let off the trigger, that high pressure water has to have a place to go. Otherwise it will deadhead the pump and actually blow the head off the pump. So the unloader just does what its name implies, it unloads. So it unloads that high pressure load and puts it into bypass mode. When it goes into bypass mode, that water comes back out of this tube here and goes back up into, I'm sorry, it's actually two, goes back up into the fill over there. This will actually have to be replumbed a little different. So when you see this, it'll come in a little bit different. How that works is this high pressure, when you let off the trigger and it comes back up into here, it comes through a small port here and actually pushes down on this spring. This spring will open up, and instead of that water coming through here and going out, it goes into the bypass mode and comes back into the tank area over there. Real simple in the way this works. It's real cool when you can actually see it all out in the open like this too, to visualize it. But under normal circumstances, let's say we got the trigger pulled, we're operating, water's going to come out this side. You have a pressure relief valve here. This must be replaced if it ever starts to leak. So keep an eye on that, check that before every job. You will normally see a little bit of a drip start to occur from that. If that happens, pull that off there. We need to get that replaced. This is assuming you don't have an issue further on down the line which is causing that. These have steel inside of there. They will age, they will wear. It will get to the point where it will just fail just because of its age. What I do with that, like I said, make sure you have one on hand, replace it. If it pops off right again, that lets you know that there's another issue somewhere else in the system. So that pressurized water is going to come out of the unloader, comes up here, comes up into our nice big coil here. If you're using the heat, this is where the water gets heated. If you're not using the heat, it's just going to pass through here like another hose, another part of the system. Comes out on the other side of the coil down here, and here are your quick disconnect fittings where you can hook your hose up for your guns and wands. Petrol tank to power the gasoline engine, diesel tank, fuel oil, kerosene, whatever you guys are using over there. This is for the burner assembly on the pump here. Vanguard engine, just like the Honda and the generator. Low oil circuit. Check your oil before every job. If it runs low on oil, it's going to shut down. If it's low on oil at startup, it will not start. So we're feeding our machine. We've got water coming in. We've got fuel in both tanks. Pull your choke out. Here's your throttle. Start your engine. Throttle it up. Engine's going to spin. It's going to power the pump. Also powers this generator over here. The pump obviously is going to pressurize the water. The generator will control the burner over here. So if you want to use the burner, flip your burner on. This is your thermostat here. Set it where you want it. Flip your burner on. Combustion fan will come on. This igniter here will come on, and it will start to work. Now, this won't actually burn anything until you pull the trigger. You don't want flame happening in here without that trigger pulled and water flowing through the system. So what's going to happen here is if you let off that trigger, there's a pressure switch here. This pressure switch is going to open up. There's a fuel solenoid here which it controls. So under, let's say, normal operating mode, you start this thing up, you grab your trigger, you pull the trigger, water's flowing out of the gun, that pressure switch is closed. There's this solenoid here on the fuel valve here, which is closed, which means fuel is coming in. You've got your combustion fan already running, pulling your air in. You've got your igniter here running, providing your spark. Bam, your fuel comes in, combustion process starts. You let off that trigger, that pressure switch opens up. This fuel solenoid over here closes, stops the fuel from getting into the chamber in there. Combustion process stops. When that happens, this just closes right here. The pump goes into bypass mode and it takes the fuel that it's actually pulling from the tank and spits it right back into the tank. So when you first start this up, if you're not using it, combustion fan's gonna be running, igniter's going to be running, fuel pump's gonna be running right here, but it's just gonna be dumping fuel and bypass. Just making a loop there, making a loop, making a loop. As soon as you pull that trigger, this solenoid valve closes, opens up, lets fuel come in, combustion process starts. Obviously, you're no longer here in the bypass, so you're pulling fuel, spraying it into the chamber, combustion's going. As soon as you let off that trigger, it stops again. But these parts here will continue to run. Once you're done using the heat, very important, turn that off, grab your gun, run nice cool water through the system. Probably take a couple minutes with this gigantic coil you got here, but we want to remove the heat from this coil and not just shut it down while that coil's hot and trapping that heat in there. If you do that, what's going to happen is there's a big mess of steel in here. You can't see it. It holds in a lot of heat. If you just shut that down, all that heat's just kind of trapped in there. It's going to start to boil that water off and it's going to scale up your coil, cause deposits to get in there. So you want to cool that down. So again, when you're done using the heat, shut it down. Make sure you run a nice bit of cold water through there to cool that coil down and pull any of that heat that might be in there away from there. Here you have a chemical valve if you want to pull chemical through the system. If you really want to do this, read your manual. I can go over that with you. It's kind of a no-brainer. Not many people use it, but if you do, the option is there for you. And that's it for the walkthrough. Kind of quick, kind of simple. I think it's simple. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully you'll be here and we can go over this in person. Again, it's gonna look different when you get it set into your equipment, your truck, trailer, whatever you're using. You'll have to just fab some stuff up to make it work for you. Talk to you soon.